The topic of torpedo bats has dominated headlines across Major League Baseball over the first handful of games in the season. It seems just about everyone has an opinion on these new style of bats and the difference that it makes for hitters, with Phillies pitcher Matt Strahm not excluded from the list. The all-star reliever took to Twitter to voice his opinion on the overall topic of the bats and why pitchers are really the ones getting the short end of the stick here. I want to dive into exactly what he said, as well as reflect on the overall impact of the bullpen in the early parts of the season for this Phillies team. I do think we entered this season with a little bit of concern with the bullpen as a whole. Obviously, they did let guys like Jeff Hoffman, like Carlos Estevez walk in the offseason and did take some high risks. A guy like Jordan Romano that, is coming off a down season that they're hoping can return to the peak of his performance. But I do think there have been some encouraging takeaways through the beginning stages of this season. Now, before I dive fully into the topic of today, do want to remind you guys, as always, to make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. That at this point in time, 62.9% of you guys watching these videos have not subscribed to us here at Phillies Digest just yet. The season is off to the races, and we are right along with it. So myself and Luke Arcaney are going to be breaking things down every single day on this channel and want you guys along for the ride as well. Now, to get into the topic of today, it is what Matt Strahm had to say about the topic of the torpedo bats. And the Phillies all-star reliever took to Twitter to send out, "Let them use whatever bat they want. Let's just allow pitchers to use whatever hitters have in the on-deck circle and not check us like we are criminals every time we walk on or off the field. I'm just a pitcher, but I'm assuming better grip helps you swing harder." And he followed up his point to kind of clarify his exact stance, that there was a comment stating, "Preach. This was my exact thought. Let you guys use the sticky stuff." To which Strahm replied, "Not sticky, because some of that stuff was a bit much. Just whatever a hitter can use to grip a bat better, we can use too." And I do think this is a fair response from Strahm, pretty reasonably laid out there and pretty clearly articulated there, that it does feel there is a different standard between what pitchers are held to and what hitters are held to. And it is kind of like shocking, and when you really think about that, every single time that these guys check in and out of the ball game, that there is an umpire directly checking their gloves there, making sure there is not the sticky stuff on it, or they are, have any sort of substance that could impact the way they throw the ball. Quite the opposite for hitters there, that they can chalk up their hands, they can rub up whatever. And sure, you can't use pine tar, and there are still rules against these guys, but it does feel like there's a much clearer eyeball, or attention paid to what pitchers are doing with that process, which is what Strahm is trying to address here. Now, as far as the topic of torpedo bats, I did in my initial video when discussing this, as we know, Alec Boehm began utilizing one. It does feel like we're starting to see them filter into the Phillies clubhouse. Bryson Stott is a guy who's spoken plenty about it. Bryce Harper has ordered one from the good folks over at Victus there, and more and more. Brandon Marsh, another name that is adding to that there. I will say I haven't seen, at least from my experience watching from afar here, a significant difference on the way that it comes out the bat. We're seeing Boehm knocking a couple, and he has not hit a home run with that famous torpedo bat yet, but I think he's hitting the same here. And I think my initial stance shifted from how is this legal to how did this take 150 years of baseball for these guys to figure out. I kind of feel like it's not as big of a deal as the initial reaction was. The bottom line is it is really hard to hit a baseball, and that does not change regardless of what bat is in your hand. And I do think from an MLB perspective, that is why they're a little bit more lenient with hitters with these types of conversations. It is no secret that everyone loves offense. Everyone loves home runs. And I think the MLB is a little bit more willing to look the other way to allow that to happen more than is the case with pitchers who are at the advantageous position. That when you are on the mound, you are going to have greater success than the hitter. That is just how math works. That is just how baseball works. And I do think the Phillies bullpen has been executing that as a high level. So to reflect a little bit on the pitching group as a whole here, it's been some pretty solid stuff from this team. That as a bullpen as a whole, an ERA below 3 through the beginning part of the season. I am recording this before the first game of the Dodgers series. That is going to be the true measuring stick performance here. So apologize if there's anything that does not age well there, but do want to highlight on what we know to this point. And as far as Strahm specifically, has done his job thus far. 3 innings pitched for Strahm thus far on the season, and he's delivered in those. That he has just 1 hit allowed across that entire stretch here. And really from top to bottom, I've been pretty impressed with everyone that we've seen. Even a guy with not a lot of expectations. A guy like Carlos Hernandez has done his job. Jose Ruiz, Tanner Banks, Joe Ross intrigues me there. And it has not been perfect. Jordan Romano, I think, has struggled a little bit there. But all guys. And one dude that I specifically wanted to highlight for this video here has been the impact of Jose Alvarado. To me, this was a little bit of a wild card guy coming into the season. Now, we've seen both the highs and lows of Jose Alvarado, and when he is locked in and on, he looks like one of the best relievers in all of baseball. But we also know that the variance in the level of pitcher that he is quite high on that standard. That there are days in which it feels like he can't throw the ball over the plate, and that is incredibly frustrating. But thus far in the season, he has been dominant. The velocity is there. He looks fit. He is Jose Alvarado in the fullest form, and have been really excited for what we've seen. So as we kind of pull up a little bit of his pitching chart here, did want to highlight this next to me, and I'll go a little bit bigger with it. You can see the movement on the sinker has been absolutely incredible this year, and this is a guy who they've thrown a lot on his plate. The Rob Thomson is giving Alvarado the opportunity to earn, I'm even going to go as far as to say, the potential like primary closing role. Obviously, Orion Kirkring is a factor. Strahm himself is in this same mix, and we know that the Phillies do not commit to a full-time closer in the way that a lot of franchises have. I would say it's probably a more league-wide trend that teams are leaning away from this, that they don't have their assigned closer, and they are more prone to, playing the matchups, making sure the righty versus lefty splits are the way you want it. So I don't think that we ever see things sway that way, but I will say Alvarado, I've been impressed with thus far, and he's probably coming off his rockiest performance, no pun intended, against the Rockies last night, as he did ultimately shut down, well, not last night by the time this is coming out, but he did ultimately shut down the meat of the order and make sure he got the job done. And Rob Thomson kind of addressed the control issues that did pop up for the first time this season following the game. And shout out to our guy, Luke Arcani, who was in the arena doing the press conferences, and he tweets out that Rob Thomson said after the game that they'll have to take care of Jose Alvarado after today's game. Pitched 3 of 4 games, 35 pitches today. He thinks a good portion of his command issues was due to the heavy workload over the last few days. But I do love that Thomson is going right to Alvarado out of the gates this year, building his confidence. And I think that for Alvarado specifically is really important. That is a guy that I think needs to continue building, continue having momentum in the ability that he plays and feeling confident in himself. When he gets off the rails, I do think he has a tendency to spiral a little bit right there. So love that he is starting off the season right. Now, regardless of what bat these guys have at the plate, it is on the bullpen and the pitchers to do their job, and there has not been any issues with that thus far. There are still plenty of questions to be addressed and a fairly easy pathway to the start of the season for this Phillies team, but you can only beat who's in front of you, and that's exactly what they're doing. So I'm curious if there are any big picture changes with the torpedo bat moving forward. My initial reaction when I first started seeing these bad boys rolled out was this is probably a short-term thing, that, it's going to last for a little bit, the MLB is going to crack down, and then we keep it moving there. The more that it's kind of settled in, I do wonder if this is just going to be kind of a thing that sticks around to this point. But as Strahm clearly stated in his initial tweet here, this isn't something that MLB pitchers are up in arms or throwing hissy fits over in the way that I think a lot of people have perceived it to be. So shout out to Strahm to taking to Twitter to share his opinion there. Shout out to him even more for delivering on the mound the way things have been through the early part of the season. Will be interesting to see if there are any changes from an MLB perspective moving forward. But I do think this team and Strahm specifically is just going to keep humming through things. So we'll see how everything goes down from there. But appreciate you guys for tuning into this video. Do want to remind you guys one more time to make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. That once again, just 37.1% of you guys watching these videos have subscribed to us here at Phillies Digest just yet. We want to get this Phillies Digest family growing. Let's get these numbers up. Let's grow as a family together. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Drop any comments you have below. I'll be back talking with you next time. Peace.